Hey, how are you going? Hope you're having a good day. This is the fourth video on the scam incident that I had. I call it an incident now. It shows you probably how much I've not put it to bed. It's still in the back of my mind, and it does still impact the things I do every day. But it is something that I've sort of worked through in some sort of shape or form. So just to give a recap, I've done 3 of these videos already. The hook, basically how they got me in, and the hopes and dreams. The line, keeping you on tender hooks and making sure that you're still engaged and continuing to fleece you is probably the best word of money or whatever. And then the stinker, as it were, when you find out for yourself what's going on. So this last one is then really talking about just what's happened since then. This was something that sort of completed in about February of this year. And it was something that really had a major impact on me and my family, and had a lot of impact. I mean, I talked briefly about it in the previous video about what I got out of it and how I felt about it and stuff like that. But I think there's still a lot that I needed to sort of work through. Thankfully, at the time, I was working at an organisation which is about caring for humans and making sure that they look after themselves, both in terms of mental health and other things. But and so I was able to access counselling. So I did go and see that, and I sort of think that was a good step. A lot of the things that I talked about in there was around the guilt I had and the shame and all of those things. And I think one of the things that person sort of really sort of talked to me about was that in one sense, it wasn't my fault. And that was hard to sort of, even for me to internalize, even once I talked to her about that. It was something that, how can it not be my fault? How can it not be something that I maybe not brought upon myself, but just through my own stupidity? And she sort of really sort of talked about, these are sophisticated. It wouldn't be such a big industry. Like I said, it's the 3rd biggest economy, or even at one stage, I think it was the 2nd biggest. These people wouldn't be making so much money from so many people if they weren't doing sophisticated things and having sophisticated tools in order to make people part with their money, with their property, whatever it is. Well, it's mostly money. So it's not like there's something unique about me in terms of idiotic. I can't even say it. Being an idiot or anything like that. They are very sophisticated in what they do. They train in terms of what they do. There are movies about this that sort of showcase how much it's trained and so on and so forth. And I think that doesn't even scratch the surface of how much it's done. And in another sense, the way I look at it, it's like just about any other job, but it's probably not one that's sustainable for the long term. But you don't know sometimes what these people are going through in order to have to work in some of these places. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that sometimes the pressure on them is maybe a little bit stronger than the pressure on us in some cases. But again, it sounds like I'm making excuses. I'm certainly not doing that. But it was something that I had to sort of work through in terms of how could somebody do this? How could somebody be like this and try and get money from me? What morals do they have? Like I said, I had a real crisis of morality, I think, is probably the best way to describe it, and then just a general crisis in myself. How can there be people out there like this that are just those people that are doing the right thing by working and doing everything that they need to do, following all the laws, and then you got these people who are just doing everything to flaunt them and to prey on those people who want a little bit more, and play on our dreams and our hopes and our goals, and then sort of leave us even in a worse state than what we were before that. And for me, that was sort of like, how can I trust anybody, humanity again, as it were? And I think that's something that sort of came through. And I had to see a little bit of people that were actually doing good in the world. It was the same time as other people were doing some really shit stuff around the globe. And you could just sort of see it's everybody for themselves. So you do really have to sort of widen your view of what's going on to see actually that there's people out there that don't mean you harm, don't mean you good. So there was that real crisis of morality that was going on for me about how can there be people like this around the world. But then you see that there are other people that are doing even worse in the name of good or whatever they think. And they're probably pushing some of these people into those sort of spheres and stuff like that. But then on a real personal note, like I said, the guilt and the shame, I think, as I said, for me, I internalized everything, regardless of what my wife and my family said about me, and how supportive they were of me. I still felt at some stage they were going to sort of, I don't know, kick me out or get rid of me or whatever. How could I do this to us as a family? How could I do this to us and our future? How could I be so stupid? All of these things, I was waiting for somebody to just sort of say, look, that's beyond what we can cope with. You just need to go or whatever. I felt like that was going to fall down, and I think I was in a sort of like I've had depression, so I know what depression is like, but this was beyond that. It was a logical battle around depression, that this is real. You're going to, I was thinking all the worst things about myself. I was starting to go down the road of sort of seeing trees and thinking how good they look, and let's see if I can get up close to them really quickly. And I really had to take care of myself that I would not do some of those sort of things, and that's why I did seek the help of the counsellor, making sure, and also telling people what I was doing and what I was thinking, and sometimes I had to sort of say some of the things to my wife that I probably didn't want to say, how I was feeling, and thankfully she wasn't dismissive of those feelings. You know how sometimes you can have people sort of say, I'm not thinking that, and just stop saying those sort of things. It was more around an understanding that I might be thinking those things, and sort of making sure that I understood that she wasn't thinking those things. She was lining up all the things I'd done rather than this one incident, and saying, look at all the other things that you've done, and how that has been good. So don't judge yourself by just one incident. And I think that sort of helped me get out of that, because at that stage I thought, life was over, I've ruined everything. But then when I could sort of zoom back a little bit and see the whole picture of what I'd done over, 30 years of my working career, this was thankfully just a little drop in the ocean to my whole thing. But it took me ages to see that. I have a big thing about money anyway, in terms of how I am around it and what I want to do and how I sort of picture. And this has really done quite a lot to change my viewpoint of money, of how it can come and go, how it is not the be-all. It's not the best way to evaluate your life. It is one way to evaluate your life, and at certain points in your life it probably is a good way, but it's not the only way. If you evaluate just on money, then you're going to be, you're probably going to come out on the wrong side of the ledger all the time, because there will be times when money just sort of goes for whatever reason. And so you need to make sure that you're balancing your ledger, as it were, with all the other things. Supportive family, and that you've helped nurture them. A supportive home environment, that you're keeping a roof over people's heads. Food and security also, and that all of those things have been done for the last 30 years or whatever it was that in our relationship. And that's the whole ledger. It's not just this particular time. And that took me a while to get that into my thick skull, that's actually going. So the aftermath of really a dark place, to have that sort of feeling that I wasn't the worst person in the world, and that I had some things around me that was still good and that people still believed in me. That was probably what got me out of that. And so I sort of think, to those people who have been in this situation, one thing I think you need to do at this point in time is really look around you and have those open conversations about who you are as a person. I know that the scam and what it was about, the hook, was about your dreams, your future, your livelihood, possibly also just generally your happiness. It's a huge one. But just look around, and there's probably enough there that you can sort of see that you're generating some happiness for yourself and for others. And there's probably a lot more on your ledger than this one little incident. And maybe it's time that you realize why you were probably hooked on this scam in the first place. It has really, what this has really done for me is really looked at, why did I end up being so blind to all the things? And it was probably my my attitude around money and about accumulating. And I'll talk about that in another video. That, you know, one of my things is really about accumulation, and a lot of my self-worth is around this accumulation. And I really had to look at that and realize that that was probably wrong. That was doing a hell of a lot to detriment to my mental health. And that is what really got me into this, because if I didn't need to accumulate or felt like I had to continue to accumulate, I might have looked at this a little bit differently. And I might have thought about it in a little bit more of a strategic thing and think, this just doesn't work like this. Regardless of how good something is, it just doesn't work like this. And so maybe that's one of the lessons that I've learned from this, is that I need to understand myself better to understand why this was such a trap for me. And I think I've learned that. I'm still learning that. I haven't said that I've learned that. That means that it's done, dusted, all gone. I think I'm still learning that, and I'm still wary of that, and also looking at it day to day to make sure that I am sort of not going to fall into those traps again. And also looking at the whole picture, not just this little time. Sort of looking at what I've accumulated and sort of say, actually, that's pretty good. I can accumulate some more, but I will just do it on my terms and realize that's good enough. So for me, that's been a really strong part of this, is really being able to understand myself a little bit better and understand what my needs are and why this was such a trap for me. So I hope that is also the same thing that can happen for you, that you can understand yourself a little better and understand why this might have been something that you just fell into and wanted to believe. Because that's really all they work on, these scams, is on our belief and on what we really want. And so if we can understand ourselves and understand how we might do that in a better way, in a quicker way, or in a more productive way, then we may not be so susceptible to these things. So I hope this 4-part series has been of interest, and you sort of see the whole gamut. You can sort of see that I'm still not sort of that emotional about it. It's probably not the type of person I am, but the depths of despair that I went to were quite deep. They're not something that I've been in before. So for me, it was really a hard lesson to learn, and a hard lesson to sort of go through as well. But hopefully somebody else will read this and they might understand why, and they might sort of stop before they start, and they might save themselves some pain, especially pain, but also maybe save themselves some money. So if you're in this, good luck to you getting out. If you're about to look at something that is looks a little bit, hopeful, then maybe have a second think about it, or a third think about it, and see if it's really what you want. Anyway, good luck to you. I'll talk to you in another video.